Hello, and thanks for tuning in today to our mat yoga class. We will be using a belt, or if you don't have a belt, some kind of a stretching strap, a yoga bathrobe, a bathrobe tie, or an old necktie, even a scarf, something like that if you don't have a belt. And I also recommend a couple of blocks. You may not use them, but they're really going to be great to have. If you don't have a block or two, a great substitution, at least for one of the things, is going to be a really firm cushion or a couple of books or something like that. Okay. And I would like you to begin lying down on your backs. I'm going to stay seated, but go ahead and lie down on your backs, and we'll begin in what I call constructive rest. Okay, so constructive rest is, I step out of the way, is we lie down on the back. Feet are going to be out wide, like as wide as your mat, and then turn your toes in slightly so the knees tent together. And then arms can be by your sides with the palms turned up. So as you settle into your mats, into your space, if it's comfortable, please allow your eyes to soften and close. And as the eyes close, we will tune in. So when you tune in, what do you notice today? What draws your attention in? Perhaps that is sound, or maybe physical sensation, noticing those places of you that are touching the mat. Maybe going in deeper to other physical sensations, just as a result of using your body in this world, right? And then what else is there? Emotions, thoughts. Judging anything you discover, using that information as a way to familiarize yourself with your starting point today. What is it to live in this body in this moment? Please let your awareness rest on your breath. Just watching the breath as it moves in and out. Try not to control the breath. Just allowing the breath to move just like it was before you started noticing it. Breathing in and breathing out. Practice today, we'll focus on grounding our energy, calming and soothing the nervous system with just all of the extra activities this time of the year. We have a tendency to be more in our heads. And when we're always living up in our heads with, the multiple appointments or parties or things that we have going on, maybe we're seeing extra people, right? Stressors, more analytical, we're thinking a lot. So our energy kind of flies up, and that can leave us feeling overstressed, overstimulated. And the really great thing about our yoga practice is that we can come to our mats and learn to shift that energy. And today we'll work on shifting that energy from being so up here, being more grounded. And when we're more grounded, at least in my body, in my life, we have a tendency to be calmer, nicer. Right? We'll work on that today. One of the best, most accessible tools that we have to influencing our energy is the breath. As you're continuing to watch the breath, begin to emphasize your exhale. So just allow that exhaling breath to become a little stronger, a little deeper. Breathing in and out through the nose. Emphasizing the exhale almost immediately sends a message to the nervous system that it's time to get out of that running from the bear, running from the tiger. Get out of those stressful situations and move into rest and digest instead of fight and flight. And just moving into rest, calming the energy. But now begin to focus on just the inhaling breath. Allow the inhale to get a little bigger, a little more full, a little stronger. Now gradually, even for just about 5 breaths or so, let's even the pacing of the breath out. So as you're noticing the inhale, count the inhale. Maybe we're going up to a count of 4 or 5. And as you exhale, count about the same out. We're working our way into a nice even pace breath. Inhaling for about a count of 4 or 5, and exhaling for about a count of 4 or 5. Grounding, calming, soothing to breathe this way. One more breath like this. And then return to normal breathing. But I invite you at any time during our practice to come back to that nice even pace breath. And I'll remind you throughout class as we're moving through or even holding postures. If you wish to set an intention for your practice, may I suggest maybe grounding presence, or maybe there's a word or something that resonates with you that brings about a sense or the quality of being grounded and stable. Let that be your intention today. Softly let your eyes blink open. And staying on our backs for a moment, go ahead and inhale and hug your knees in towards your chest. And as you bring the knees in toward the chest, just noticing all the places of you that are still touching your mat, your shoulders, the spine, the backs of the hips. And allow those places to sink even more deeply in and down. And then let's begin with a twist. Keeping the knees drawn in, let's lower both knees to your right. Please feel free to bring any support in underneath the right thigh, or maybe taking that block or cushion in between the knees. That's also really nice. Left arm will extend out to the left, keeping the palm up and open. And using our twist physically and metaphorically as a space for letting go, releasing. Maybe there's something that's been weighing on your mind, that you've been overthinking about, or maybe there's something physical in the body. As we're here in our twist, releasing, can you release that? Release those things that no longer serve you right now. And just let it go. Allow the dropping of that weight, that stress, to make you feel a little lighter. But simultaneously more grounded. Almost as if the letting go of that weight allows you to sink even more deeply. 2 more breaths here. On an inhale, untwist, move back onto your back once more, hugging the knees into the chest. And then we'll take that twist to the other side. So lower both knees to your left now. Right arm extending out to the right, palm up. And tuning into the twist, tuning into how it feels in your body and where it feels in your body. You release the tension, the tightness, the holding. Release the weight. Let it go. Two more deep breaths here. And then on inhale, exit the posture, exit the twist, back onto your backs. And let's move into happy baby. So from knees drawn in, let the knees move wide apart. And then hands reach in between the knees. So you can maybe just catch onto the ankles, soles of the feet kind of moving toward one another. Or if you want to move into full happy baby, keep hands on the ankles or outer edges of the feet and take the feet up. So arms are still inside the knees. An alternative here might be, if the feet aren't accessible, let's just take hands to the backs of the thighs, still allowing the knees to come out wide. Now, oftentimes when we move into happy baby, we let the hips roll up and we kind of roll into the middle back. For today, because our practice is all about grounding, can you lengthen the tailbone away from you so the hips sink down a bit more? Let's take 2 more deep breaths here. On an exhale, release both feet back to the floor. Positioning your feet so to you they feel like as if you're in mountain pose, right? Standing with the feet on the heels underneath your knees and the toes all facing forward. Arms will be by your sides. On an inhale, you're going to firmly press into the backs of the arms as well as the head and the soles of the feet, and you'll lift the hips up for bridge pose. And then on an exhale, you'll lower down. So we'll do a little bit of movement just to start warming up the body. Inhale, the hips lift. Exhale, hips lower. Good. Up. And then let's take 5 more, please. 5. 4. 3. 2. And 1. Hips up, up, up. Hold them up. And stay here for just a couple of breaths. And even though we're lifting the hips, opening the heart, we're grounding down, we're pressing into the mat with the backs of the arms, the shoulders, the back of the head, and the feet. And through that grounding, we get lift, we get energy. It's almost as if the things of us that are touching the mat are kind of like plugging into that earth's currency. Good, let's grab that block, right? If you have that block or that cushion, grab that. We'll take a supported bridge pose from here. So keeping the hips lifted, bring the block underneath the hips, and you can use any height of the blocks. So you'll just rest the sacrum just above the tailbone, but below the vertebrae. Move a nice flat spot there, just resting the hips. And then we'll try a nice passive stretch to the front of the hips. Take your one leg and just stretch it out. Doesn't matter which one. Just stretch it out. Keep your heel on the ground. And just feel this nice passive stretch across the front of the hip. Now also tune into the fact that when we take this position with the leg, it does bring us into an arched position in the lower spine. So if it's too much, you can either lower the block or just keep your feet on the floor with the knees bent, okay? So if it felt good on that leg and felt okay, let's bend the knee. Let's take the other one and just stretch it out and just test the waters. What does it feel like here on this side? And if both legs feel okay individually, you may try taking both legs and stretch them out at the same time. Again, heels on the ground. I'm just softening in, gently opening up the front of the hips. You might like to also take a really long stretch for the upper body. What if you took the arms and stretch them overhead? 2 more deep breaths here. Bring the arms back by the sides. One at a time, bend the knees so the feet come back to the floor. Pressing into the block, lift the hips up off of that block, and then lower the hips all the way down. And just pause. Once the hips come down to the ground, just pause for a moment, allow your spine to return to its neutral position. And then a little bit of movement before we stretch the hips out more. Widen the feet out, just like we started for a constructive rest, right? So the knees are bent, feet are out wider than your mat, or as wide as your mat. And just do a couple of windshield wipers here, just letting the knees go side to side. Starting to lubricate the joints a bit more, get some blood flowing into the legs. Great. Bring the knees up, grab your belt now, or whatever you're using to stretch with. And we'll take that and loop it around the bottom of your left foot. So we'll do the left side first today. So as the belt goes on the bottom of the foot, the leg goes up toward the ceiling. We'll flex the left foot so the toes move towards you and the heel presses up. Keep a little bit of a micro bend in the back of the knee just to help protect the ligaments there. And then as you press the leg up, pushing the foot up into the belts. And you might notice the sensation of just a slight lift in the left hip as you push the foot up into the belt. So then we pull on the belt enough so that it feels like that left hip is being grounded again. And then one more choice you have to make here. You might keep your right foot on the floor with the knee bent, also grounding there. So pressing the foot down so that both hips stay even and neutral. Or you may wish to extend the right leg long on the floor. If you're choosing to extend the leg long, keep it flexed so the toes towards you, right? Heel stays down on the ground, but firming the right leg. Take one more breath here. Now take both ends of the belt in just the left hand. Continue just a little bit of a pull on the belt and pushing into the belt. So We almost keep a bit of traction in this leg. Now, please take your left leg and drop it out to the left to any degree. So you might take it just a little, maybe you drop it over farther. Do keep yourself grounded through the right side. So whether the knee is bent and on the floor, right, we can push into that foot to stay grounded, or leg extended, either way. Opening up inner thigh, inner groin. Let's inhale, bring the leg all the way back up. Release the belts, foot to the floor, and we'll take the other side. So now the belt's going to loop around the bottom of the right foot. Right leg goes up. As the leg goes up, the hip usually comes up too. Then we're going to add that little bit of energy. You're pushing into the belt and pulling on the belt at the same time, flexing the foot, and then decide whether left leg extends or you keep the knee bent. Wherever you are, just allow all of the places of you that are touching your mat to sink a little deeper. Release tension and holding from the shoulders, allow them to soften. Let's take the belt into just the right hand. Continue that lengthening, so pushing into the belt and pulling back just enough so that that thigh bone stays grounded in the hip socket, and then drop the right leg out to the right to any degree. I'm really close to the wall, so I can't go very far, but just feel some opening through the inner thigh, the groin. Not to say that you won't still be feeling it in the back of the thigh. On and inhale, bring that leg all the way back up. We'll release the belt. You can set that off to the side, both feet to the floor, and then hug those knees in towards your chest. You may either rock to one side to come up, so rolling over, or if it's safe for your spine, feel free to rock forward and back on your spine and come all the way up. Please come onto hands and knees. Just a little more warming up here. Depending on your environment, feel free to bring a blanket underneath the knees for more comfort. But as we first arrive on all fours, check your foundation and check your grounding. Hands are right underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath your hips, and we're plugging into the ground. So you're pressing the hands down, feel that energy give back, energizing the upper body. And then press down, tops of the feet and shins, press them down, feel how that energizes the legs and even into the low belly. Let's take a couple of rounds of cat and cow here. Inhaling to arch and exhaling to round. And originate this movement from the tailbone. So the tailbone is going to be the first to move. The head will be the last. We'll take 3 more. One more full breath. Neutral spine now. And please go ahead and flip over again and come to seated. To come to seated, we'll take a simple cross-leg position, Sukhasana, and begin with your left knee or left foot in front, however it is that you sit. I will sit up tall. We'll take a lateral bend and a twist to your right. So the left one's in front. So we're going to take the lateral bend away from that front knee. So right hand will come to the floor, either in line with the hip on the floor, or you can place a block there as well. We'll take the left arm, extend it up. So we want to inhale, lengthen the spine, and then exhale, lateral bend over to your right. We'll stay for a couple of breaths. So you may choose to look up past the left elbow or down to the right hand. But as we take the lateral bend to your right. Do you feel the left hip come up? Let's stay grounded. Press that left hip down and out. We're still feeling some nice opening through the side ribs, through the left side of the lung. Beautiful. Inhale up nice and tall. Now let's take a twist toward the bent knee. So we'll twist to your left, right hand to the left knee. Inhale, lengthen up tall as we twist. We keep the chin in line with the breastbone for the twisting. And then once you've settled into the twist, if you'd like, feel free to turn your head to look around. Left. Shoulders are down. Inhale, untwist yourself. And then we'll cross the legs the opposite directions. Now we have the right one in front or on top. Left hand to the floor, outside the hip, or to that block. Inhale, right arm up, and exhale over. As you reach over, right hip, right ribs reaching out to the right. More opening. Almost as if through grounding, we create more space. Inhale, bring ourselves all the way upright. Let's take the twist now to the right. So left hand to the thigh, opposite hand behind. Lengthen the spine, inhale, and on exhale, twisting to your right. On inhale, untwist all the way back around to the front. I always feel like I have to do a little bit of wriggling around there. Beautiful. Please come up onto your knees now. So again, depending on your environment, if your ground is hard underneath, you may like to have a blanket underneath. And so knees are going to be underneath your hips. You may either curl your toes under or press the tops of the feet down. Either way, we're going to engage. So you're going to press down so that through that grounding, we get more opening through the upper body. So what we'll actually take is Purgasana or gate pose. So from kneeling here, take your right leg and extend your right leg out to the side. And just as we did with the last lateral bend, the leg is right in line with the hip. So it's not in front or behind us, okay? And position it in such a way so that you can plant the sole of the foot down. I always like to take my foot at a little bit of an angle. And then we press the foot down so we energize this leg. Right? Be careful that we want to make sure to energize the leg to keep the knee safe. Okay, so pressing down and then almost this little bit of a scissoring action, like we're pulling the legs together. On the left side, the hip, shoulder, and knee are all in alignment. Right hand, either to your hip or to the outside of the leg. We'll take the left arm, reach it up to the sky. On exhale, take your lateral bend over to the right. Once again, opening up and stretching the side body. Feel free to turn the gaze to look up or even look down towards your right foot. Bring yourself all the way up. Let's bring the right knee in, and we'll take that on side two. Set your position and then extend the leg out. As you extend the leg out, once more, plant the sole of the foot down and energize the legs. We're pressing down and almost like this scissoring action at the same time. Through the grounding, we get centering. We get lift, freedom. Left hand, find its position either to the leg or to the hip. Lengthen on the inhale and exhale. Take your lateral bend. Inhale all the way upright, back to the knees, down, and then turn around, come to kneeling, but this time take your right foot forward. So we're going to come into a kneeling lunge. 2 more prep poses, and then we'll come up to stand. So I'm going to use the blocks, but you may also just take hands to either side of the front foot, okay? Position the front foot in such a way so that when you drop the hips forward, your right knee stays right over the ankle, okay? That's for stability there. And I prefer to press the top of the foot down rather than curl the toes under here on the back foot. But of course, you do whatever works best for your body. Hands will be on either side of the front foot, again, floor or block. And then the first thing we do is set our foundation and find the ground. So press your right foot down. Feel how that energizes the front leg. Now press the top of your left foot down. Feel how that energizes the back leg. And now draw them together, like right heel and left knee are squeezing toward one another. Through the grounding, you know how the spine lengthens, maybe even feel more freedom in the chest and the heart and the spine. Couple more breaths here. Hips moving forward and down. Please take your right foot, walk it out to the right. So it allows you space so that both hands can come inside the knee. From here, we'll go into a lower variation, just to continue opening up the front of the hip. So perhaps if you have blocks, you could bring forearms down to the blocks or to the floor. Continue lengthening the spine. And with the right foot, the one that's in the front, you may also like to take the toe, ankle, knee, and just angle them out to the right ever so slightly. I do that, it gives me a little more space for the hip, for the inner thigh and groin to open. Let's take 2 breaths more here. If you've come down to the forearms, bring yourself back up. All right. Now, keeping the right foot forward, walk your hands out to the left. So we're coming out at a diagonal, and then send your right hip to the right. So the arms are walking forward, getting length in the spine, but right hip goes out to the right. I love this diagonal stretch for opening up the hips. Beautiful. Walk your hands back underneath your shoulders. If you still have the right foot out to the right, walk it back so it's in line with the hips. You can bring hands on either side of the front foot once more. And then wiggle your right foot forward just a little bit, a few inches. And now shift your hips back so we're lengthening the right leg out in front of us. So we've already done this stretch with the belt on our back. So backs of the legs should be starting to feel more open. As you sink the hips back, the leg lengthens out, flex the foot to feel more stretch in the lower leg, and lengthen, extend your spine over that front leg. Make it a little more active. You may press your right heel down, and then find a little isometric drag, so you're pulling your right heel back towards you, even though it's not going to move on the mat. Inhale, shift the hips forward, and then we'll switch sides. So your right leg will go back and the left one will come forward. As the left foot comes forward, take time to set up your alignment, right? So the left foot is forward enough so that when you drop the hips forward, the front knee doesn't go past the ankle. And then we find our foundation, our ground. So you press the front foot down, the back top of the foot down, and then scissor the legs together. Get really energized in the legs, even while we're dropping the hips forward. And notice the difference in your body, whether you're rounding into the upper body or whether you're lengthening the spine. It has a different effect on how it feels in the hip. And sometimes it's just a little experimenting to see what works best for you. But keep those legs active, keep plugging into the ground, into the earth's currency. Let's take this a little bit lower. So now left foot will walk out to the left a little bit wider, so hands can come inside the knee, and either stay here on the hands, or if you'd like to come a little bit lower, bring the forearms down to your blocks or your support or to the floor. Stay tuned into your breath, into sensation. What about that intention? What are you calling in, or what are you letting go of? Let's take that diagonal stretch now. So back up to the hands if you came down. And then both arms and upper body walk out to the right as the left hip moves out to the left, just getting a little bit deeper stretch into the hip. Let's come back to the center. Bring the left leg back in line with the hip, so hands go back to either side of the front foot, and then the left foot wiggles a little bit farther forward so we have more space. As we send the hips back, then lengthening left leg out in flex, flexing the foot to feel more sensation in the lower part of the leg. Emphasize the stretch a bit more for this last breath. If you like, push the left heel down and let a little bit of an isometric drag back, dragging it back even though it's not going anywhere. Then let's inhale, shift forward, and then take the left leg back. Great. You guys ready to get up and do some standing work? I am. So make sure if you have any things on your mat, go ahead and move them out of the way. And come on up to stand. Now, you may like to have, if you're using blocks, I'm going to place mine to one end of my mat. Actually, they're on the left end of my mat, and I'm going to stand all the way over on the right end of my mat. So for orientation, if you're more visual, then I recommend turning your mat so that the orientation of your mat is like mine. We're going to be moving lengthwise on the mat today for a gentle moon salutation. So now, just so you know, I am going to be instructing you to go a direction that mirrors me. So even though I'm telling you to go to the right end of your mat, I'm on my left, okay? So just know that for playback on the video, sometimes that can get a little confusing. But just follow what I say and just know that I'm going to be the mirror image of you. So you're going to be all the way over on the right side of your mat, take your blocks all the way down to the left. Okay. So let's start in mountain pose, because everything starts with foundation. We've already checked in our foundation on our backs. We've checked in seated. We've checked in on the hands and knees, and now standing. So heels underneath your knees, all 10 toes facing the same direction, and bring your arms down by your sides. If it's comfortable, let your eyes soften and close. And then reminding ourselves that mountain pose, Tadasana, is truly a pose in and of itself. So we need to be active here, pressing the feet down and lengthening up through the spine. So as you press the feet down, get more clear about your connection with the earth. Find the big toe mound, the little toe mound, the center of the heel. Feel that energy drawing up the legs. It might feel like your kneecaps are lifting. The fronts of the thighs are firming, drawing that energy up into the low belly. The low belly draws back to the spine, up to the ribs, lifting and lengthening the heart. Feeling so grounded through the lower body that the upper body is free. Beautiful. If the eyes are closed, blink your eyes open. And we're moving to the moon salutations. We'll go relatively slow for the first round, and then we'll try to pick up the tempo a little bit. All right. So to begin with, we take the arms, inhale, arms up and overhead, and we'll interlace the hands in what's called Kali Mudra. So everything is interlaced except for index fingers. Take an inhale here, and then we take lateral bend to the center of your mat, so to your left. Lateral bend or crescent moon. We inhale back up tall, and then take crescent moon away from the center of your mat, so to your right. Now we'll inhale back up tall, step out wide to your left. So we're coming into a nice wide leg stand. We'll call this 5-point star. This is just a little intermediary pose, 5-point star. Now we have to do some pivoting of our feet. So then we'll come into goddess squat. So pick up your heels, turn your heels in and your toes out slightly and sink into a squat with the elbows bent. Now, be really mindful of your squat, but just for a moment, I'm going to turn sideways so you can see the difference here. As I squat down, I'm not coming forward. I don't want my weight to shift out forward. Notice how when I do this, my tailbone kind of even comes forward, right? Instead, send the butt back and then bend the knees. So the butt goes back first and then the knees bend. So primarily the knees stay about over the ankles, okay? This is to keep everything safe for you. All right, so that's our goddess squat. Now we stepped out to the left, so all movements start to the left. Bring yourself upright, pivot the feet again. We'll take triangle pose to your left. So the right heel turns back and the left toes turn out to the left. In triangle pose, the arms are nice and wide, and we're going to be doing some nice flowy movements. So there's no reason to go to your deepest expression of the pose here, right? The left hip will dip down, the right one lifts up. Left fingertips to the floor and right one up to the sky. All right, now continue rotating to your left. Take your hands to your hips and lengthen out over that front leg, just almost similar to what we did on our knees just a moment ago. With the hands on the hips, it gives you a little bit of information to try to keep your hips neutral. Now, alternatively, here you could use the blocks and take fingertips down to the blocks, all right? I like doing it on the hand, doing it on the hips, but you do you, all right? Now, inhale, next pose is warrior one. Bend your front knee and lift the chest. If it's available, you might reach the arms up overhead. Then we transition to warrior two. So now instead of facing the short end of the mat, we're going to turn the hips to face the long end of the mat and open the arms out wide, just like we had them for triangle. Now inhale, come back to the center. 5-point star, goddess squat. Make sure that you're sitting back into the butt. I'm going to take my blocks out of the way. Now inhale, back up, 5-point star, and then we'll take triangle to your right. So the left heel turns back, right toes turn to the right, arms nice and wide, right arm drops down, left one reaches high. Now pyramid to your right, hands to your hips, rotate hips so you're facing the short end of your mat, lengthening over the front leg. And then warrior one, bend the knee, lift the heart. And then open wide, warrior two. Inhale back to center, 5-point star to goddess. Now we'll keep that movement to your left. So as you come up from goddess, right foot steps to the left, and now we'll be in mountain pose on the other end of the mat. Interlace the hands, Kali Mudra, crescent moon to the center of your mat, up tall, and then crescent moon away from the center of the mat. And then lower the arms down. Now we need to reverse this to go the other way. So we'll inhale, arms reach up, crescent moon to the center of your mat, and then crescent moon away from the center of your mat. Now we step to the right, 5-point star to goddess. Make sure you pivot the feet. That keeps your knees safe. So heels are in, toes are slightly out. As you come up tall, we step to the right, so everything starts to the right. Pivot your left heel back, right toes to the right. And triangle poses first, Trikonasana. Continue rotating to your right, pyramid pose variation, hands on the hips, or again, blocks if that's your preference. And then warrior one, right knee bends, chest lifts high. Keep anchoring through the back leg, so legs need to stay really grounded throughout all of these movements. And then open wide, warrior two. Coming back to the center, 5-point star to goddess. And now we'll take that series the other direction. So as you come up, pivot the feet, triangle poses first over to your right. or to your left, I'm sorry. Pyramid pose, over the left leg, hands to the hips, folding over that front leg. And then bend the left knee, warrior one, lift high. Open wide, warrior two. And to the center, 5-point star to goddess. And then we complete the full moon cycle by stepping back over to the right end of the mat. Interlace, crescent moon to the center. Up, and then crescent moon away. And up. Lower the arms down. So let's flow again. And I'd like to go, let's go one more time each direction, okay? Maybe even two. We'll see how it goes. Inhale the arms up overhead. Crescent moon to the center of the mat. Up tall. Crescent moon away from the center of the mat. Inhale up. Step to the left. 5-point star to goddess. Up tall. Pivot the feet. Trikonasana, triangle pose over the left leg. Pyramid pose over the left leg, hands to the hips or blocks. Then warrior one, left knee bends, arms and chest lift. Open wide, warrior two. To the center, 5-point star to goddess. And then Trikonasana to the left. So pivot the feet, set up the arms, drop. Continue rotating to your right, pyramid pose. Warrior one. Warrior two. And back to the center, 5-point star to goddess. Let's end up over on the left side of the mat. So step to the left, crescent moon to the center of the mat. And crescent moon. All the way back around. Inhale. Crescent moon to the center of the mat. And crescent moon away. Step out wide to the right. 5-point star to goddess. So we step to the right, so everything starts to the right. So set up the feet. Triangle pose first. And then pyramid pose. Warrior one. And warrior two. And tall. Goddess. Now to the right or to the left. Triangle pose. Pyramid. Warrior one. Warrior two. And to the center. Goddess. All the way back over to the right end of our mat. Crescent moon to the center. And crescent moon away. And all the way back up to me. And lower the knees. Beautiful. Love the way that makes my body feel. I always feel grounded, yet just a little energized, but more like an organized energy rather than the phonetic energy, right? So let's go ahead and come all the way down onto our mats. We'll do a couple of stretches for the hips. Now that we've gotten up and moved around again, we'll do a few more things here before we close. Let's begin by, let's come all the way down onto your backs. We'll take a reclined pigeon for the outer hip. Right, so lying all the way down. Let's start by taking right ankle over the left knee. If you're already feeling sensation in the outer hip, feel free to keep the left foot down here on the floor. Otherwise, you can pick up the left leg and thread your arms through and interlace behind the left thigh. We're starting our cool down. Let's tune back into the breath. We're a little more energized now, so you might notice that the breath is a little more rapid. Maybe even more shallow. Consciously deepen Lengthen the breath. Maybe even coming back to the 4 or 5 second inhale, 4 or 5 second exhale. Take 2 more full breaths here. At least one of those breaths. Take a full deep breath in, pause at the top of the inhale. And then when you exhale, part the lips and sigh it out. Feel the body soften as you let the breath. Let's cross the legs more. So now thighs are crossed. And we'll take twisted roots. So you can release the arms out like a T and then lower both knees, still in this crossed position, over to your left. Right, so we have the right leg still on top. Now, if the legs don't come all the way down to the ground and you like to have a little support there, you might take blanket or blocks and just kind of stuff it under the leg in some way. Not only giving us the twist with the torso, with the legs crossed a little more like this, we're still hopefully getting some stretch in the outer hip and thigh on the right side. Sometimes I feel this one all the way up into the torso, into the sides of the waist. Let's take 2 breaths more here, please. On and inhale, untwist, move back onto your back, feet to the floor, and please pause for a moment. Before we do anything else, just pause, check in. Notice how this feels in the body. And let's take that on side 2. So left ankle over the right knee. Either keep the foot here on the floor or pick up your right foot and interlace behind the thigh. Take that twist now. Releasing the right leg, cross the left leg over a little bit more. So thighs are crossed, and then drop both knees over to your right. Again, feel free to pull in any props or support you like here under the legs. Two more full breaths here. Just as we did on side 1, at least take one of those breaths. Really full deep breath in, pause at the top, and as you exhale, sigh it out. And watch and sense how the body softens. You exhale and let go. Inhale, you'll untwist, uncross the legs, bring both knees into the chest. Let's take a brief happy baby once more. Let the knees move wide apart, and then yogi's choice, whether you just catch the ankles from here or maybe hands to the backs of the thighs. You could also grab the feet and take the soles of the feet up. Please release the feet. Bring them all the way back down to the floor. And make your way into Shavasana. So either full Shavasana, legs extending, or you can take constructive rest as we began today with the knees bent and tenting. As you allow the eyes to soften and close, take a brief moment and scan the body, just as we did when we opened. Head to toe, notice what you're sensing, feeling, thinking. Maybe, just maybe, you notice a shift or a change. There's a subtle sense of more grounding, less chaos. And please come back to your breathing. Emphasizing the exhale. Allowing all of the places of you that are touching your mat, that are touching the earth, to sink in a little deeper. Remind yourself of your intention today. You've been carrying that with you often. Take a deeper breath in now. Just calling the energy back to the body, maybe wiggling fingers and toes. If you have time for a longer Shavasana, then feel free to stay here a bit. But if you're like me, we have to move on to other activities today. Bend the knees, bring the knees into the chest, either rocking side to side or forward and back on the spine. Bring yourself all the way up to six. Maybe even doing so with eyes closed so you can stay inside. And as you sit tall, join the hands in Ujjayi Mudra, palm against palm in front of the heart. Once more, remembering your intention, and then bowing chin to your chest. Always taking a moment for gratitude. Gratitude to yourself for taking this time for you today. And thank you so much for sharing the practice. Namaste.